Folks, 2019, Tennessee activist Pamela Moses was found guilty for illegally registering to vote. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison for vote fraud. Now, she had been deemed permanently ineligible to vote in Tennessee due to a 2015 conviction for tampering with evidence. Now, she voted because of an error that was made by the state's Department of Corrections. Now, although the charges were later dropped, this experience has motivated her to really challenge this issue. Tennessee has a significant issue with the percentage of African Americans who are unable to vote due to their state laws. And so on Tuesday, a voting rights trial begins, making Pamela the first person in 100 years to challenge the law that prevents individuals who have been incarcerated from regaining their right to vote. If successful, this ruling could automatically restore voting rights for more than 500,000 Tennesseans. Joining us right now is Pamela and her attorney, John
Okay.
Habenreich. Glad to have the both of you here on the show. Pamela, you know, we had you on before. Look, this is an issue just today, not
You got
just today,
lost
but
audio
this week
again.
in Virginia. They moved forward. They moved forth with the second time that would move to a constitutional amendment that would restore the voting rights of the formerly incarcerated in Virginia. We saw what Desmond Meade and the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition did in Florida, where they got Amendment 4 passed,
I'm not hearing anything on
restoring
my
the
end.
rights to 1.4 million people. This thing is real when we talk about how these states like Tennessee and Mississippi and others have felony disenfranchisement.
Yeah. It's real. It's more than real because it has collateral consequences when you restrict a person's right to vote. In Tennessee, you not just keep them from voting, but you prevent them from holding public office. And so the reason why this case is monumental, as you know, I ran for U.S. Senate in 2024 against uh, Marsha Blackburn, who's now trying to run for governor here. But I couldn't run for mayor, city council, school board, or alderman. If you are unable to register to vote, you're unable to run for any state offices. So essentially, by them prohibiting people from being able to register to vote and
Yes.
vote, they prohibit them from being able to represent people. And that's why you have a state that is bloody red with a governor that's red, uh, attorney general that's red, all the state reps. I think it's about 80-20 that's red. And when you have it locked and loaded like that, you can't get any change because they don't have to. You have no leverage because everybody is caught up in partisan, beliefs. And, that was one reason why I ran as an independent, to give people who were on either side a chance to look at me as a candidate and as a person. And so it's very real. And I appreciate the things that I learned when I met Desmond Meade and other people. And I think that's phenomenal what Florida did in Virginia. And I think it's time for Tennessee to do the same thing.
And when you want to bring in your attorney, John, here, John, so walk us through in terms of what uh, your focus is or your strategy is going to be to appeal to the courts to restore. Because look, Tennessee has been steadfast in standing for this, just like Mississippi has been.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Roland. Tennessee has a long, long history of really pernicious felony disenfranchisement laws. We are one of the worst states in the country when it comes to the percentage of Black Tennesseans who are being disenfranchised. We have a really pernicious permanent disenfranchisement regime. It really goes back over 100 years. So we have several claims in this lawsuit. We have an equal protection claim because we have a statistics expert who has been able to really crack open the vault of data here in Tennessee and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there is a massive disparate impact on Black Tennesseans when it comes to felony disenfranchisement, 3 to 1 or worse when compared to white voters. In some counties, it's 10 to 1. So we are going to be proving that on the stand through the state's own data that this has a massive impact on Black Tennesseans. We also have claims relating to the history. of felony disenfranchisement in Tennessee. Tennessee began with a commitment to voting rights early in these 1800s. And in fact, during the Reconstruction era, passed a constitutional amendment that was specifically designed to protect suffrage and to stop the state from ever manipulating the votes of its people. Unfortunately, just was with poll taxes and literacy tests and grandfather clauses, felony disenfranchisement really is the last vestige of Jim Crow. And we're here to challenge that, and we're excited to do that on Tuesday.
So in terms of the Tennessee law, uh, what does it all go back to? When did this start? Because I think about Virginia, where you had a white legislator who literally said on the floor, "We are doing this to keep the niggers from voting," and that stood all of this time. And when Terry McAuliffe was governor, he highlighted this, and he tried to do a mass restoration. But the law says the governor has to do each individual person must sign for each person, and they did that for a number of people, and they've been doing this. But now they want to put it in law. So what was the impetus in Tennessee to make this the law?
So, going back over 100 years, we've had a history in Tennessee of adopting laws that work both practically and through the legal system to disenfranchise Black voters. There's been a long history after the Civil War, after Reconstruction, and with the advent of Jim Crow, of Tennessee passing a series of laws like poll taxes, like literacy tests, like felony disenfranchisement that worked specifically to deplete the power of Black citizens in Tennessee. Over the course of years, those laws have changed. They've taken a little bit different format. They've been amended, but they've never been done away with. And in fact, what happened in this case is that for a long time, Tennessee did not have permanent felony disenfranchisement. But in 2006, unfortunately, during an attempt to make it easier for people who had been convicted of felonies to restore their voting rights, during that process, an amendment was slipped into the bill that would, while at the same time allow certain people to get their rights restored, would have another category of people like Miss Moses who would be permanently disenfranchised and could never get their voting rights back. So unfortunately, it was one of those situations where a poison pill, so to speak, was slipped into some legislation that was introduced for a good purpose. And unfortunately, with the power shifts in Tennessee over the last 10 or 15 years, very little progress in the legislature has been made to try to reverse that. And so we've decided, along with the bravery and strength of Ms. Moses herself, who started this whole thing, we decided that litigation is the way that we're going to have to fix this.
Pamela, look, we understand the impact of the law on African Americans, but this impacts white folks in Tennessee too. Are there white Tennesseans who are standing with you, saying, "Hey, we support your effort as well"?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, Roland, because when I was campaigning, I got an opportunity to go to 66 of the 95 counties. And I would say I met probably 8 out of 10 white males and some females who were disenfranchised. And it was shocking because, I don't want to look at this as a black and white thing, but it is what it is. But at the same time, Tennessee's population is not made up of majority black people. It's made up of a lot of, poor people in both rural and city areas, but it's made up of a lot of people who have been disenfranchised, and recently I had to go to a funeral in Knoxville where I went to school, and it was for my brother-in-law. He'd been murdered on New Year's Day, and he was 60 years old. And the last thing he said to me when when I was running for office, he was like, you need to leave those white people alone. Don't be getting involved in those politics. And I was like, why? He was like, I'm just playing with you. He was like, I can't vote. I'm a felon. He said that, but I'm gonna tell everybody I know to vote for you. That was the last thing a 60-year-old black man told me that never got the right to vote before he died. and he was a victim of gun violence. And so, what I say with this case, this isn't about black or white. This is about right or wrong. Our president is a convicted felon. And the judges that I will appear before, who took an oath, sworn to uphold the United States and Tennessee Constitution, they are going to have to look themselves in the mirror because the future is coming. We're already here. We got robots and Elon and all kinds of stuff going on in Memphis. And if you do not want my children or people who've been, wrongfully incarcerated in prison like myself to have the right to vote, then you can't call yourself an American and you can't be for democracy. And it's very important that people understand that this is the trial of the century. And
Well, we're definitely going to be. Go ahead.
I hope that people will tune in, because you got courts and you got the court of public opinion, and the people need to be watching, because Tennessee claims to be a volunteer state, and it's time for us to volunteer to end slavery, because that's what this is. When you deny me the right to vote, you deny me the right to hold office, and that's what they've done. And I think President Trump
John,
would
this
support
really.
I think he would
John, this
support
really
it
is
in light of this situation.
well. I won't say he's going to support it, John, because clearly there's MAGA is anti-black in so many different ways, and Republicans, their goal, and let's just be look, this is not just Tennessee, this is across the country. They are on record as saying, if we can shrink the voting populace, we stand a better chance of winning. And unfortunately, race plays a huge role when it comes to voting laws in America.
You're
I
exactly
agree.
right, Roland. I'm counsel at my organization is called Protect Democracy, and we focus on a whole variety of issues. And voter suppression is a huge one. We have done felony disenfranchisement cases in other states, North Carolina, got one in Virginia right now. But we recognize that this administration, one of its primary goals is voter suppression. We've seen it come out of the president's mouth. We've seen it come out of various other people in the administration talking about making it harder to vote. You see devices all over the country, including in Tennessee, voter ID, uh, limits on so-called line warming, cutting down on early voting, cutting down on voting days. This is part and parcel of a number of tactics that the administration is using with as you say, the deliberate intent to stop people from voting. And when you look at the history of authoritarians, when they come into power, one of the targets right off the bat in every situation throughout history is marginalized communities. And at Protect Democracy, we recognize that, and we are prepared to fight back on behalf of these marginalized communities, fight back on efforts to suppress the vote, and fight back on efforts to transform our democracy into something more authoritarian. That's the whole mission of our organization, and we think this case is a big part of fulfilling that mission.
All right. Well, look. Good luck. Will this take place in state court or federal court?
State.
It's in state
We're in
court.
Supreme State Court. We're in 140 Adams, 10 a.m. Tuesday. We're in the Tennessee State Supreme Court, but it's a state issue. And
Do they allow? Do they allow? I'm not familiar. Do they allow live streaming, or is there no streaming?
Oh, it will be live streamed on their YouTube with the Tennessee Court of Administration. All their cases are live streamed.
Okay.
So if you're
All
not
right
able
then.
to attend,
Well,
you
look.
watch it.
All
If you're
right.
not
Well,
able to
good luck,
attend, you can
Pamela.
watch
Good
it.
luck, John, and
Thank you so
good
much.
luck with this. Good luck with this case, because it truly is important. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Roland.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Go back to. I'm gonna go back to my panel here. I'll start with the resident lawyer. Although I might be in Texas, he's a Howard grad, but he's always trying to claim that little school up the road. Matt, the point here is it's no doubt Republicans flat out they want to keep these laws on the books because they want to keep black folks from voting. And I asked that question about white folks. I hope white Tennesseans are rising up and saying, I want my right to vote back too.
Yeah, because there are a lot of white felons too, people who are affected by this. In fact, I have a client here in Texas dealing with a similar issue regarding disenfranchisement. We were talking about it earlier this week. But what I wanted to ask them, and maybe you or the other panelists have some information on this, what I think is especially insidious about this is I read the constitutional section so I could see kind of their argument. And the way Tennessee passed this law is it says you're permanently disenfranchised if you're, quote, convicted of an infamous crime, or if you are convicted of specific crimes. I think in 2024, they promulgated a law where voter fraud would be one of them. Now, the thing I don't understand as a threshold matter in this case is Miss Moses' case was dismissed in 2022. So that to me seems to be dispositive. It seems to be there's a mootness question, because usually what courts do is they say we don't even want to get to the ultimate question if there's not a current dispute between these two litigants, right? Miss Moses in the state of Tennessee. So if her case has been dismissed, I don't even understand how the state could be denying her rights under its own law from the little bit that I read. But I do think that, to your point, the way these laws are written is very insidious, because something like a, quote, infamous crime, what is that, right? How do you define that? Maybe it's defined somewhere in the statutory section, but that's precisely the kind of thing that allows local administrators on the ground to say, you know what, Mr. Manning, you can't register to vote. We think that's an infamous crime. That's the kind of nebulous thing that you do when you want to make it such that people are not given their right back to vote. And what's especially interesting is the United States Constitution has caveats about when you are removed from servitude or when you're removed from, being punished. In fact, the Eighth Amendment specifically says you can't be punished, essentially, overly harshly commensurate to the crime you allegedly committed. There's no question from a due process standpoint, taking away somebody's right to vote lifelong is virtually, a death penalty sentence, as you might say. So I really don't understand how it's still working in this case. I was hoping to ask them that question, but I think your larger point is 100% correct. And I think what happens a lot of times with disenfranchisement as it relates to voting and just the restoration of rights to people who have felonies is the system is so arcane and so difficult to navigate that people just give up. I mean, I see it more commonly in the instance of gun rights, but I've had people who have felonies and they're distant in their past, 40, 50 years ago, and they still don't know how to navigate the restoration of their rights because the system is purposely made difficult so that you are never fully restored, particularly with respect to your right to vote. So I think you're exactly right, and I don't quite understand how it's playing out in this case, but it's clearly intended to make it difficult for any felon to have their rights renewed.
Raven.
I'm thinking about this conversation very holistically. When we talk about incarceration, mass incarceration, it starts from the very beginning. It starts with the school to prison pipeline. Then it turns into Black and Brown and Indigenous folks being over-indexed in prisons and jails. And then it looks like our communities being disenfranchised when it comes to the ballot box. And the more I think about sort of this timeline of how everything unfolds, I mean, the word is insidious. I feel like that's the word of the night, just how fundamentally and profoundly insidious it feels. And for me, at the core of all this is a politics of disposability. I'm an abolitionist at my core. That's a whole nother conversation just in terms of what different people mean when they say abolition. But for me, fundamentally, what it means is I do not believe in a politics of disposability. And when I think about these Tennessee laws that disenfranchise folks who have felonies, that to me feels like a prime example of what that looks like, a politics of disposability. Oh, because someone has had a situation, an encounter, with this apparatus that is disproportionately organized such that it's going to be anti-Black, going to be anti-Indigenous, going to be anti-Hispanic, going to be anti-Latine, because someone has had a negative encounter. Therefore, they don't get to exercise a fundamental right that our community has fought and died for, that our ancestors literally laid their bodies on the line for. Like, how dare you? The audacity, the audacity to believe that that's something that you get to take away from someone is really what's driving it home for me. And I think at the core of this is really a fundamental conversation about restorative justice, really a fundamental conversation about, like, how do we talk about harm what it looks like to repair harm, and what it looks like to still keep folks fundamentally engaged on a societal level at all levels, because that's a fundamental human right. You don't get to take that away because of something that's transpired in the past.
Michael.
Yeah, Roland, when we look at this, we see after slavery ended, we see during the Reconstruction era, these felony disenfranchisement laws being put into place in various southern states. The earliest one that I see is Florida in 1868 when they rewrote their state constitution. Tennessee's dates back to the 1870s. And right now, looking at the Georgetown Journal of Law and Modern Critical Race Perspectives, they talk about how in Tennessee today, more than 1 in 10 Black adults are disenfranchised due to prior felony convictions. So this is a continuation of these ways to get around the 15th Amendment of 1870. And I find it interesting that you have Donald Trump today, you have Republicans today saying that we want to fill Dr. King's legacy, so we're going to wipe out all of these discriminatory policies, and because they think that affirmative action was discriminatory to white people. They think DEI policies are discriminatory to white people, right? And these same people that have wiped out 60 years of civil rights progress since January 20th, 2025 are going to do posts on social media come Monday talking about how great Dr. King was. But they don't want to deal with the harm that felony disenfranchisement laws are still inflicting upon African Americans today. And these same people will then say, well, it's legal, it's okay to disenfranchise you if you have a felony, but you should still pay taxes. To me, that's called taxation without representation. Isn't that one of the reasons why the American Revolutionary War was fought? So once again, this goes to how many of these white supremacists fear the political power of African Americans, okay? And this is why we have to fight back and vote these people out of office.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.